So this is probably my most anticipated video. No pressure. So hey guys, I have a very important book review for you today, and that would be on George R.R. Martin's Storm of Swords. Now a little bit about this book. This is part of the Song of Ice and Fire series. If you don't know, the first two books are A Game of Thrones and A Clash of Kings. Storm of Swords is the third one. This was published in 2000, and when I checked, it was only published 2 years after Clash of Kings. So either George R.R. Martin had a bunch of stuff planned out, or he's just taking a really long time to write the next few books. It's the longest book so far at 1,177 pages. Now I have read The Stand, and The Stand is a very long book, and I don't have it with me, so I can't check the pages, but it's between The Stand and this book for the longest book I've ever read, I'm pretty sure. Just a spoiler warning for the first two books, I'm not going to spoil anything for this, obviously I'll just tell you about it and whatnot, but since it all builds on each other, it's you have to kind of reference the other books. This is the first time I've read one of the books where I haven't already seen the TV season that goes with it. So this was exciting because everything was new. I had a couple things spoiled for me just because when you're on the internet, people write things and you figure stuff out. But the majority of the things that happened in this book, I had no idea they were going to happen. So that was really awesome because there was points where I was shocked out of my mind. When people say this is the best book in the series, obviously I haven't read A Feast for Crows or A Dance to Dragons yet, but Storm of Swords is definitely the best by far. In this book, you get a couple new perspectives to replace some dropped ones. Theon's perspective is gone, and instead we get Jaime Lannister and also Samwell Tarly. I liked Jaime's point of view. It was interesting to kind of see things from his perspective considering how much we'd heard about him from other characters. And Sam's was relatively interesting. He definitely had a better storyline in this book than he might have had in an earlier book, so I can see why he became a narrating character. As for the other ones, we still had all the same returning. We still had Daenerys and Catelyn and Arya and Sansa and Tyrion. Davos is still there. He was introduced in A Clash of Kings. So we have majority of the main characters back talking, and obviously some of their chapters, some are more interesting than others. You might be happy to know that Daenerys actually really didn't get on my nerves in this entire book. I actually kind of liked her a bit. She started really kicking butt, and of course she's not really in Westeros, she's kind of like off over here in the islands. Obviously she's going to be way more of a threat once her dragons can really do some damage, but right now she's just going around to a lot of the free cities and kicking ass and taking names, which I like. And she does a lot less whining. In terms of the best, most exciting chapters to read, Arya, always exciting for me. She's probably my favorite character. Once again, she kicks butt and isn't really afraid. I mean, she's afraid to some extent, but the situation that she's in, it's okay to be afraid. Can you tell that I like the girl characters that kick butt? Jon's perspective was like super interesting in some parts and then horribly boring in others. So his was sort of flip-flopping around. Sansa's was actually really interesting this time. She also is another character that's grown on me. I didn't hate her as much as I hated Daenerys, but she gets a lot better as she kind of gets older and matures and realizes that there's a game that has to be played here. And she's one of the few characters who's really playing the game. Obviously Tyrion plays the game, but he's a master at the game. It's the Game of Thrones. If you play or you die kind of thing, just in case I was confused. Tyrion's chapters were also pretty interesting. He has to come back from a pretty shocking ending at Clash of Kings, and of course his father makes a return and kicks him out of his spot of being the Hand of the King. So he sort of goes from being the #1 guy to back down at the bottom of the totem pole. In terms of the most boring chapter, Bran's. Bran's chapters were so boring, I just didn't care. I mean, he doesn't even have that many in the book, but every time it came to his chapter, I was kind of like, what's the point of this? Nothing is going on with him, he's just wandering around. There was one point where he runs into another one of the characters in the story, and that was probably the most interesting part, was because we had two different characters come together and meet, and they sort of realized who the other one was. But that was only for like a couple pages, and then they sort of got separated again because stuff happened and whatnot. But yeah, Bran's chapters, so boring. Yeah, that phase too. I can't even get into too many details because this book is just so gigantic. There's so many things that go on. Jaime has a scarring thing happen to him, and so his character, from what you know, sort of changes. He stops being a jackass all the time and starts being a jackass some of the time. Sam kind of turns into more of a man. He's like a member of the Night's Watch. Jon does some things you would never expect him to do. Catelyn is annoying as always. Arya winds up in some weird situations and has to get herself out of it, but what's new with that? Sansa has to attend multiple weddings. Tyrion takes some much needed revenge. From Davos's point of view, you get to see a bit of Stannis, you get to see the craziness that is Melisandre. There is so much death in this book. And not just death of minor characters, but deaths of major characters. It's huge. And I think that's part of the reason why people like this book so much, is that so much happens with important characters. You wouldn't believe it. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to give away who anybody is that dies, but I can count 5 major characters, or relatively major characters, that die off the top of my head. I was reading one of the scenes where major characters die, and I was on campus and I just happened to be eating lunch and I was sitting there reading the book and I could just sense that something was going to happen. When it did, I was sitting there with my mouth open, just, oh my god, and just like flipping the pages, eyes like really wide, mouth open. And once I finished the chapter, I had to take a second to sort of collect my thoughts because I was not expecting that at all. But the thing is, that happens multiple times in the book where you're just completely shocked. Because of that, because of all the interesting things that happen to these characters, this is the first book, I feel like, where you understand that George R.R. Martin has no problem killing anyone off. That being said, my thoughts on this book overall is that it is absolutely fantastic. This book is the only one so far that I'm going to give a 5 out of 5 for. Obviously recommended to anyone who is reading the series or has thought about reading the series. You kind of have to read the first 2 first, so I apologize for that. Game of Thrones is pretty good. Clash of Kings is eh, but to read Clash of Kings to get to this, it's kind of like the prize at the end of the tunnel. So if you guys have read A Storm of Swords, just let me know what you thought. Thanks for watching. If you like book reviews and you liked this video, you can subscribe to us. You can also follow us on Twitter and friend or follow us on Goodreads. The links are below in the doobly-doo, and I'll see you later.